As yes to Fulham. Mazraoui looking set to sign for Manchester United, with Aaron Wan-Bissaka joining West Ham. And what is going on with Manuel Ugarte? These are some of the stories we will be discussing on this morning's live show. But before we get into that, please do me one small favour. Smash a like on today's video. Let's try and see 1,000 likes on this episode. And if this is your first time watching, please subscribe to the channel. I'm live every single day at 8:30, 1:30 and 6 p.m. UK time. Currently, only 50% of people watch our videos are subscribed. So if you're one of those who isn't, make sure you get involved. It's completely free content and it's your best way to keep up to date with all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. Right, I want to start the show off by talking about Manuel Ugarte, and I want to get you guys' opinions because it feels like we've been talking about Ugarte for, 2 months? Literally, maybe not literally, 6 weeks, let's say. It's been a very, very, very long time. Before the Euros, before the Copa America, we were talking about Manuel Ugarte. We were talking about a deal was done. We were talking about that he wanted to come. And we're still talking about Manuel Ugarte. And it's getting really, really frustrating now. And I want to get you guys' opinions. What should Manchester United do with Manuel Ugarte? Should we go ahead with the deal? Should we pull out? What's your thoughts? Because at the moment, there is lots and lots of contrasting information going around. The latest, I'll bring you the latest, and then you can give me your opinion on what you think should happen, right? So, obviously, there was a story yesterday from L'Equipe that said that apparently PSG are ready to accept a loan deal for Manuel Ugarte. Apparently, they're asking for around £10 million as a loan fee, which is a hell of a lot of money. Don't get me, that is a lot. And remember that Manchester United will have to give them that up front. You won't be able to do a loan fee in instalments. It will be £10 million. Give it to us now, right? And if you flip that on its head and you look at Leny Yoro and you look at Joshua Zirkzee, both of those players we're only paying like £10 million for this season. So the point I'm trying to make here is we could go and sign, for example, Zubimendi, yeah? £50 million, his release clause is. And you could spread that transfer over a 5-year period, which would mean you'd pay 10 million this season, 10 million the next, etc., etc. That's what we did with Zirkzee, and that's what we did with Leny Yoro. So in this financial year, we technically only pay £10 million, right? So the question I have for you here is giving PSG £10 million to borrow their player for a season and then have to give him back the most logical sense for Manchester United here? Or do we go for someone like Zubimendi and split the deal over a 5-year period, like we've done with Zirkzee and Leny Yoro, like we're doing with every transfer this summer, which is really clever of Ineos. And then we get to keep the player and we pay Real Sociedad 10 million this year, 10 million next year, etc., etc. Because the thing is, right, with this Manuel Ugarte deal, PSG want 10 million now, okay? Which was the same as what we did with Fiorentina for Amrabat. But then at the end of the loan spell, apparently they're asking for £70 million if we want to keep him on a permanent deal. And I just think that, considering we've been negotiating with them for 6 weeks, right? He's a player that they don't even want. They've just signed his replacement in João Neves. Are we just getting our pants pulled down here? Because it's starting to feel a little bit like that. And I really like Manuel Ugarte. 6 weeks ago, when I first heard his name, I thought, great, this looks like a good signing. Let's go and get this done. But the more this story goes on, is giving PSG £10 million to borrow their player when we could go and sign a Zubimendi or somebody else for the same amount of money this calendar year. I just explained how that works, all right? With the, you know, if you spread a deal over a 5-year period, we would technically only pay 5 million for Zubimendi. Sorry, 10 million for Zubimendi this season. Does that make sense? I know it's all a little bit confusing. It's how Chelsea bought so many players a couple of years ago, where they split it over like 8-year contracts, didn't they? And that's effectively what Manchester United have done with Zirkzee and Leny Yoro, and is apparently what they're trying to do with all their transfers this summer. And I just think that the more this goes on and on and on and on, it's like, at what point do we walk away? You know? And as Martin says in the chat, which I completely forgot about, so thank you for bringing up, we've got to give PSG 10 million, right? But then we'll also have to cover his wages as well. So not only are we paying them a fee to borrow their player, we're also going to have to cover his wages. His wages are about 5 million a season. So it would be about £15 million to borrow Ugarte for 1 year. And then if we like him, we think, great, let's sign him. We'd have to then give them 70 million at the end of that 1 year. So the player would be what, like £80 million then, if you add the 70 that we'd have to pay them to buy him permanently and the 10 loan fee. So yeah, I'm starting to feel a little bit put off by this story, to be honest. And I just think when there's loads of other options out there, there's Amrabat. I know Amrabat's not world class, I get that, and he's not good enough on his own. But there's people like Zubimendi, you've got Amrabat, you've got Rabiot, you've got Fofana. There's probably some others that I've forgotten about, right? Why are we still bothering with PSG? Like, it seems a little bit strange. And yeah, as John says, £10 million would buy us Amrabat. That's a fair point. Samuel says Joey Veerman is better than Ugarte. Let's do a poll, shall we? It'll be interesting to see what you guys think. Obviously, let me know in the comment section. Should Manchester United go ahead? So, should United pay 10 million loan fee plus 5 million wages to sign Ugarte? Okay, the poll's set up. So if you want to get involved in that, feel free to go and do that. The question is, I've tried to break it down. So they want £10 million as a loan fee, and then we'd have to cover his wages, which are about £5 million. And as I said, just to give the full context, we could go and sign a £50 million player this summer, right? And as long as we split it over a 5-year deal, we would only pay 10 million this season. So giving them 10 million for a loan is effectively like us signing a £50 million player. That's yeah. Somebody says, Khalid says, why are we spending so much time on Ugarte? Is he the best CDM in the world? I don't think so, mate, to be honest. I think he's a good player, definitely, and I think he would massively improve our team. But I don't think he's worth 70 million euros. That's what PSG want, 70 million euros. Like, they want to make a profit, apparently, on the fee that they got. Sorry, on the fee that they paid last summer for him, which seems a little bit crazy when you think that he literally sat on the bench for PSG for most of the second half of the season. And now they've just signed João Neves, who's obviously going to start. Their midfield will be João Neves, Vitinha, and that Zaire Emery guy. Like, he's going to be so far down the pecking order. And the more that rumbles on, the more that his stock price is going to go down. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with Manuel Ugarte. But I wanted to talk to you about the alternatives. Manchester United are still trying to get this deal over the line, by the way. If the deal is not off, I've seen some people saying the deal is off. It's not off at the moment. They are still pushing to get the deal over the line. But apparently they are now looking at alternatives. So I'm going to go through the 4 players that Manchester United apparently are looking at as Manuel Ugarte alternatives. This is coming out from Duncan Castles this morning, who is a journalist here in the UK. He reports for all sorts of different newspapers. He's quite reliable. I'd say he's probably like a tier 2 journalist. Your tier 1s would be like David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano, etc. Tier 2s like Duncan Castles. So he does get good information. I wouldn't say, trust everything he says, but he's quite reliable around Manchester United. And he is reporting today that apparently Manchester United are now looking at alternatives to Manuel Ugarte. He says the 4 players that apparently Manchester United have contacted are Martin Zubimendi, Joey Veerman, Adrian Rabiot, and Sander Berg. I mean, the obvious one on that list for me is Martin Zubimendi. Obviously, he's got a release clause. I think it's £50 million. Let me just double check if that's still the case. Yes. So he has a release clause. 60 million euros or 51 million pounds, which is in his Real Sociedad contract. Sounds like a lot of money, to be fair, but maybe there's a bit of room to negotiate there. Sorry, everyone. Joey Veerman, I'll be honest, he's not really somebody I know that much about. 25 years of age, plays football for PSV. Another Dutch player, which is going to upset some people this morning, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, he fits the profile. He's a CDM. He can also play as a central midfielder. 2 years left of his current contract. Played quite a few games for the Netherlands at the Euros. I'll be honest, I don't watch the Eredivisie. I saw him at the Euros and he looked all right. I don't think he stood out that much, to be honest, like in the games I saw the Netherlands play. But yeah, so I wouldn't be that excited about him personally. Adrian Rabiot, I think as a backup option, if we get desperate, then maybe. But Again, I wouldn't be like screaming for joy if we signed Rabiot. I think it would be a good signing for free if the finances made sense and he wasn't asking for stupid wages and he didn't want a stupid signing on fee and all of these things, but he is going to want all of that. So yeah, again, I'm not going to be massively excited if we get Rabiot, to be honest. I think it would be sensible, but I don't think it would be like an amazing signing. And then the final option was Sander Berg, 26 years of age, currently plays for Burnley. Apparently he's going to leave Burnley this summer. Manchester United tried to sign Sander Berg 4 years ago, interestingly. I don't know if you remember that. But 4 summers ago, Manchester United were very close to signing Sander Berg. Some journalists were even reporting at the time that he was going to go and have a medical at Manchester United, which clearly didn't happen. It was when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the manager. Obviously, he is Norwegian, and he, in the end, moved to Sheffield United for 25 million euros. Then he moved to Burnley, but apparently he's going to leave Burnley this summer. He's got 3 years left of his deal. Obviously, Burnley got relegated. He is a CDM. Yeah, if there's anybody in the chat who knows more about Sander Berg, let me know. Because, as I said, he was somebody that we were heavily linked to in the past, somebody we nearly bought. But, yeah, I don't know. I think he'd be an okay option, but I don't think he's that much better than McTominay, really. But maybe I'm wrong, you know? Maybe someone can let me know. We've got over 850 people watching the show live now, which is absolutely amazing. If everyone could do me a small favour and smash a like, that'd be really, really appreciated. We've only got 200 likes so far, so let's try and get to the 1,000. That is the target. Everyone, we can do it. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe as well. We're on the road to 40k subscribers. When we hit 40k, I'm going to be giving out 2 of the new blue Manchester United away shirts. So make sure you go and subscribe. Now, we're only 5 subscribers away from 34,500 at the moment. So that's the next target. Let's get to that one, and then we will be on the road to 40k. So yeah, I'm hoping to give out the 2 shirts, well, as soon as possible. I'm ready to pay the money for the shirt. So let's just make sure everyone subscribes. And yeah, tell your friends and all the rest of it. Nathi says we should walk away from the Ugarte deal. Edu says people don't realise how good Ugarte is. Watch a game, not a compilation. I did watch him at the Copa America, mate, and I thought he was decent. I did say that on my shows. Before that, I'll be honest, I didn't really see that much of him. Because I don't watch French league football and I don't think he played in the Champions League that much. But I did watch him at the Copa America, obviously, because we were linked to him, and I thought I better at least watch him before I comment on him. And I thought he was really good at the Copa America. Let's see what else we got. Salim says that Zubamendi is the solution. I actually agree with you, mate. I said this maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago that if I had to pick between all of the options we were linked to, Zubamendi was my number 1 option. I just think he's a really, really good player. He just reminds me of Busquets. Obviously not as good as Busquets, but yeah, I would just love us to have someone like that in our midfield. He would kind of be like our Rodri, wouldn't he? And I know that's a bit of an obvious comparison because they're both Spanish and they both play in the same position, but they are similar profile players. Again, Rodri's obviously better, but I think Zubamendi at Manchester United could become our equivalent of Rodri. So that was why I was excited about him. But I would still be happy if Ugarte came. I just think at the moment, the finances of the deal don't really make a lot of sense for Manchester United, and that's what's putting me off. And that's obviously what's putting off Manchester United as well. Hence why, you know, this Duncan Castles guy, who is reliable, is reporting that we are looking at alternative targets. But as I said, those 4 alternative targets, the only one that remotely excites me is Zubamendi, really. Like, Veerman, maybe he'll be good. I don't know. From what I've seen of him, he doesn't look amazing. He looks decent, but not like world class. Sander Berg, again, like, I think he's all right. Is he better than McTominay? Probably not. Rabiot, I think, yeah, Rabiot's more of an attacking player, though. He's not a CDM, whereas Zubamendi is definitely a CDM. And we need a CDM. You know, we don't really need Rabiot. We've got Mount, we've got Bruno, we've still got Eriksen, we've got Hannibal, we've got obviously Mainu. Like, we've got 5 or 6 players who have the same profile as Rabiot, whereas we have one player who has the same profile as Zubamendi, and that's Casemiro, who could still leave the club. So, yeah, that's what Manchester United need to do, in my opinion. But obviously, I want to know you guys' thoughts. Should we walk away from this deal? Obviously, we play against Man City in the Community Shield a week tomorrow, which I know is only a friendly game, but there's still a trophy to win at the end of it. You still have to... When people say that the Community Shield is a friendly, right? I always see it like this, okay? You have to do something to get to the Community Shield, don't you? Like, you have to either win the Premier League or win the FA Cup. We won the FA Cup, so by our right of earning that place, we now have the chance to win the Community Shield. And I know people are like, oh, your levels have fallen so low that you're excited about the Community Shield, but it is still a trophy. I would like to win that game. I think it will set our season off to a good start if we win that game against Man City. Like, last season, I think it was laughable because Arsenal won it, but they didn't even deserve to be in it because they didn't win the Premier League or the FA Cup. They were just in it by default because they finished second. Does that make sense? Whereas this year, we actually earned our place in that Community Shield game. And I know it's a friendly, I get it, but it still is, you know, it's a trophy that's been going on for a long time, isn't it? So it's still one that I would like to win. Right, let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Somebody in the chat saying we should go for Kante. Fair enough. Someone in the chat saying that none of our opinions matter. Ineos know better. Well, that's the whole point of football. Everyone has an opinion. Like, all we're doing is discussing the names that we're being linked to. You know, like that's the purpose of these channels, isn't it? Kathy says go check his stats in possession and positioning, much better than Zubimendi. Fair enough. Morgan says long term we will regret signing Rabiot. Yeah, that's probably fair. Like, Rabiot isn't a long term signing, is he? At all. Alex says it's not a trophy, but I am excited. Erik ten Hag likes finals. You do get a trophy though, mate. Well, you get a shield, don't you? Kashif says who won the FA Cup last season? Man City did, didn't they? And then we won it the season just gone. Ben says, is there anyone else linked to Fofana? Yes, I did want to talk a little bit about Fofana, so thank you for bringing that up. In relation to Youssouf Fofana, apparently AC Milan have submitted a bid, I think this was yesterday, for around £17 million, which I think is really low for a 25-year-old who is a full French international. 25 years of age, £17 million. Apparently, he's already agreed terms with AC Milan, but that doesn't really mean anything, you know. Obviously, unless you actually agree a transfer fee with the club, like, agreeing terms doesn't really mean too much. But yeah, Youssouf Fofana is obviously an option. It has gone a little bit quiet around Youssouf Fofana and Manchester United, to be completely transparent with you. Somebody says we should just play Toby Collier instead. I mean, that is an option. But we still need to get some depth in there, you know? Like, we still need to get some depth in there, I think. Because having Casemiro and Toby Collier is probably not going to be enough. I don't think. Me personally, right? I think Toby Collier is the future. I think he's good enough to be part of the team, 100%. But it's Casemiro that I'm more worried about, just to be very, very clear. I see how Erik ten Hag develops players. And I think that Toby Collier will be our future CDM without a shadow of a doubt, right? No doubt about that. I think he's quality, absolutely quality, but he's still young, he's inexperienced. And at the moment, our senior CDM is Casemiro, who I think we'd all agree seems like he's past his best. Probably, you know? Maybe Casemiro has a redemption season this year and he's unbelievable and we win the league and it's all because of Casemiro. I want nothing more than that to happen. You know, I don't hold vendettas and personal grudges against players on this channel. Like, you're not going to see me targeting specific players. I'll just give an opinion based on what I see on the pitch, you know? And that opinion can change. If they have an amazing season, I will say I was wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, so Casemiro has the potential to next season be really, really good, you know? There's no doubt about that. He's a world-class player on his day. But I just worry that if Casemiro does have a repeat of last season, and our only backup option is then Toby Collier, maybe Toby Collier comes in and he is as good as Mainoo was in his first season. And we're all sat here saying, I'm so glad we didn't sign a CDM. Toby Collier is incredible. You know, like, maybe that happens, but it's a maybe. There's no guarantees in football. But then you could flip that on its head, right? And you could say, well, we might sign Ugarte and he might come in and flop. Like, there's literally no guarantees. There's no right or wrong answers. It's all just opinion. People saying they'd get Rabiot for free. Al says, can we assume that Casemiro is gone? From what's being reported, mate, it doesn't look like Casemiro's going anywhere, to be honest. It looks like Casemiro will be staying at Manchester United, unfortunately. But at the same time, right, as I just said, if Casemiro can have a good season this year, I think he's a very, very valuable player to have. He's a quality player on his day, Casemiro. He is. In his first season, he was unbelievable, I thought. And then it was just last season. But if you actually really, really analyse last season, most of our players were awful. Rashford was awful. Antony was awful. I can't go. Bruno, I think, was all right. Dalot was all right. Martinez was obviously injured all season. Varane was injured most of the season. Like, most of our players across our team had a terrible season. And they would all admit that themselves, you know? That's not me being negative or toxic. Like, 90% of our team were awful last season. So, yeah, maybe it was just because he didn't have, you know, the solid defenders behind him that he did in the first year. He had Maguire and Johnny Evans opposed to Varane and Martinez. He didn't have a left back. He didn't have a right back. Like, we don't know the answers to these questions, do we? And the only way to actually see, to kind of really, really see the truth in it is to see how he gets on this year, you know? With Martinez back, hopefully with Lenny Yoro back not too soon. Maybe De Ligt comes in. But let's move over to Matthijs de Ligt then, shall we? Because there's more stories coming out around De Ligt that have caught me by surprise a little bit this morning. But apparently De Ligt is back in training today at Bayern Munich. He didn't go on the pre-season tour, so that's been confirmed. There's videos, I've literally got a video on my screen of him going into the Bayern Munich training ground right now. So he's gone back for all of his kind of like post-holiday medical tests and stuff, you know, to put together his fitness plan. But at the moment, this is the headline on Matthijs de Ligt. So this is coming out from Florian Plettenberg, who is the German Sky Sports journalist. I'd say he's probably a tier 1 source for the Bundesliga. The rest of the world, probably not, but for the Bundesliga and for Bayern Munich, he's a very, very good source. And he is reporting this morning that I've been told that Matthijs de Ligt will return to Bayern Munich this morning, which has now been confirmed. I've seen the video. He says to undergo his performance tests in Munich. Okay, that's fine. He says everything is planned. His vacation is over. A deal with Manchester United is still not there, though. Bayern are still demanding 50 million euros plus add-ons, and the clubs remain in contact. It says, meanwhile, De Ligt is not stressing about the transfer and will prepare professionally and motivated for the next weeks, even though he has already agreed on a move to Manchester United. So the situation with De Ligt remains exactly the same as it did a month ago, unfortunately. De Ligt has agreed to come. He's agreed personal terms. He spoke to Erik ten Hag. He's handed in a transfer request. But Bayern Munich are saying, give us 50 million plus add-ons or you're not getting him. And now that Lenny Yoro's injured for 3 months, there is no way on earth that they're going to drop that price. Why would they? Why would they now suddenly say, oh yeah, we'll do it for 40? There's literally zero benefit for them to do that because they know that Manchester United need a centre-back now. And the way that Ineos have operated in this window so far, they've been very stubborn, I think, which is good because it's different to how the Glazers were. The Glazers would just cave in under any request. Oh, you want 100 million for Antony? No problem. No, do you want a little bit extra? Would you like a tip? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's what the Glazers and John Murtaugh and Richard Arnold were like. Whereas Ineos are like, no, this is the amount we want to pay. Either you accept it or we walk away. And I feel like now, like, the Matthijs de Ligt transfer, as I said, we've got Man City a week tomorrow. We play our first Premier League game 2 weeks today. And at the moment, it will be Harry Maguire starting that game, which, I'll be honest, I don't think is the end of the world. I'm not happy about it, but it's not the end of the world. I think Maguire and Martinez are good enough to play against Fulham, to be honest. I do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in 2 weeks' time, we'll all be sat here and we'll have got beaten 4-0 by Fulham. Maybe that will happen. But as it stands, I'm feeling okay about that first game of the season. I think we'll be strong enough to beat Fulham. I might be wrong, but obviously we'll see. But in short, does this now mean that Manchester United are going to go and look at alternative options? You know, does this now mean that we're going to go for Trevor Chalobah? Maybe we're going to go for David Hanko. Maybe we're going to go for Jarrad Branthwaite. I just don't really see what Manchester United are doing here. Either they pull out of the De Ligt deal, they make it public and they say it's too much money, we don't want to do the deal, or they give them the money. Because like Manuel Ugarte, we've been talking about De Ligt since before the Euros even started, haven't we? When was the first game of the Euros? Let's have a look. It was what, in June? I think it was June, wasn't it? So the very first game of the Euros was... I mean, it was literally ages ago. It was on the 14th of June. We've been talking about De Ligt since before that. So it's probably been like 7 weeks of negotiations with Bayern Munich, maybe longer. And from the very beginning, Bayern Munich have said 50 million, 50 million, 50 million. Man United offered 25, they said no. Man United offered 30, they said no. They want 50 million. And at what point do you then say, we've been talking to Bayern Munich for 7 weeks, they're clearly not going to go below 50 million? Like, surely that conversation has to be had now. And surely we need to have that conversation. And I'm going to do a poll. I know some people seem to get upset about the polls, but then most people like them. So I'm just going to do what I think flows well in the show. So we're going to do another poll now. I'm going to read out the results of the last poll. Over 1,000 people voted in our first poll. The question was, should Manchester United pay £10 million loan fee plus the £5 million in wages to sign Manuel Ugarte? 57% of people watching said yes, and 43% of people said no. So it's quite equal. And now we're going to do one on De Ligt. Whilst I'm setting up this poll, please do me a small favour. We've got over 1,000 people watching live now, but only 400 likes. Go and like the video quickly. Let's do that really, really quickly. Let's get to 1,000. If everyone watching now likes the video, we will hit that target. And make sure you go and subscribe as well. We just hit 34,500. So yeah, let's keep getting those subscribers up. We're on the road to 40k. And yeah, I'll be giving up 2 of the new Manchester United shirts when we hit 40k. So go and subscribe now if you haven't already. Should United sign De Ligt for 50 million euros plus add-ons? Obviously, if you're watching this back on repeat, you can let me know the answers to all of these questions in the comment section below. The question is this: should Manchester United sign Matthijs de Ligt for 50 million euros plus add-ons? And I think it's safe to say that after 7 weeks of negotiations, right, that they're not going to settle for less. I don't think. That's what Florian Plettenberg's saying this morning. It's 50 million euros or no deal. So that's the question to you. We've been in this for 7 weeks. He's agreed to come. He's spoke to Erik ten Hag. Blah blah blah. So yeah. Oh fuck! I just poured my tea on myself. Oh. So yeah, get involved in the poll, and we will. Yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute and see what you all think. Fabrizio Romano's just come out with a little update on Mazraoui. He says that Manchester United are keeping contacts active for Mazraoui, confirming their plan to bring him to the club as soon as Wan-Bissaka joins West Ham. He says, I understand that Man United consider Mazraoui an ideal replacement as he's also available to play at left back. Great, yeah, left back, right back, and CDM Mazraoui can play. So really, really good signing there. In relation to Wan-Bissaka, really, really quickly, apparently Wan-Bissaka has agreed personal terms with West Ham, which is good, because some people thought that that might be a bit of a stumbling block. Some people thought that maybe, you know, that could jeopardise the deal a little bit with Wan-Bissaka not being able to agree on wages and all the rest of it. But that has been confirmed that apparently he has now agreed personal terms. West Ham submitted a bid yesterday for Wan-Bissaka, £10 million plus add-ons. Manchester United are asking for £15 million. There is an understanding that this deal will get over the line. Again, it's just a bit of poker, backwards and forwards. And eventually they'll probably meet somewhere in the middle. I would say 13, 14 million plus add-ons. Ronnie says, Ineos are pretending to be skint. It's a tactic to avoid being mugged off like the past decade. I'd expect a minor flurry of activity in the last bit of the window. Mate, you're 100% right there. 100%. And I said this a couple of days ago, right? That we're constantly being told that we need to sell to buy. But I'm almost certain that that's just a tactic from Ineos. And you know what? I applaud that tactic. Because I would much rather us not get mugged off in the transfer window, not have a repeat of paying 100 million euros for Anthony or 70 million pounds for Casemiro. Like, that can never happen at Manchester United again. And so far, I know Lenny Yoro's injured, fine, that's upsetting. But so far this window, 42 million for Lenny Yoro, forget his injury, was a great deal. And 34 million for Xerxes was a great deal. There's no complaints there. Even if both of them flop, I think people will still... like, the transfer fee won't be like regarded as ridiculous, you know? Whereas like 80 million for Maguire, that was always going to be ridiculous. He was never an £80 million player. Whereas like Xerxes and Lenny Yoro were worth that market value. But yeah, I completely agree with you, Ronnie. Like, I'm almost certain that if you look at our transfer business so far this window, right? Last summer, I'll get it up for you now, just so I'm, giving you the correct quoting. But so far this summer, our net spend has only been £50 million. Okay? And remember that we've been spreading transfers out over 5 years. So a net spend of 50 million this season. Whereas last season, under the Glazers, the final year of the Glazership ownership, the Glazership sporting ownership, they spent 150 million. So the Glazers last summer spent 3 times the amount of money net as what Ineos have spent this summer. And Manchester United made more money last year than they did the year before. Does that make sense? So our yearly revenue is going up and up and up and up. So it's virtually impossible that we can't spend... Like, it's not believable that we can only spend 50 million, is my point I'm making here, because we spent 150 last year, and that was with the Glazers, who apparently don't spend money and run the club badly, right? So as Ronnie said, it 100% is a tactic. The Ineos don't want to repeat the mistakes of old. They don't want to overpay on transfers, and that's why these deals are taking longer, because they saw that Lenny Yoro and Joshua Xerxes were opportunities on the market. They thought that they presented good value, and I would agree with that. I'm happy with those deals. Whereas they obviously don't think that De Ligt for 50 million is good value. They obviously don't think that Manuel Ugarte for 70 million is good value either, and that's why these deals have taken so long. But what I will say is this, right? That's all good and well, but something needs to happen. We need to have some sort of alternative, because we can't just end the window and be like, we didn't sign a centre-back because we didn't want to pay the money. We're great, we didn't pay the money. We didn't get mugged off. That's brilliant. That's an achievement. Like, that doesn't win you games, does it? That doesn't win you titles. Man City are only in the position they are because they spent ridiculous amounts of money on players, effectively. Now, you could argue that we have one of the best youth academies in the world, and why are we not bringing players through from the youth? And I would agree with that. I think our youth academy is amazing. I think it is one of the best in the world. That's why players are jumping ship from Premier League rivals to come to our youth academy. Chido Obi-Martin from Arsenal. That guy from Crystal Palace. Is it Lasson? Like, we are bringing in the best youth players into our academy, and there are loads that are breaking through. But is there a centre-back who's ready to break through? I don't think there is, to be honest. There's Will Fish, but I don't think he's good enough, to be honest. Whereas Toby Collier, I think he is good enough, and he will get into the first team this season. But other than that, obviously Harry Amas as well. I think he's good enough. He'll break through. But other than that, we need to sign a centre-back, Like, you can't just say, we don't want to spend the money because it's too expensive. We're not going to buy a centre-back. Like, we need a centre-back. That we have to, without a shadow of a doubt. Joshua says his name's Samuel Lassalle. That's it, yeah, from Crystal Palace. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, let's move on to... What else have we got planned? Let's have a look. Let's move on to Scott McTominay then, shall we? Because we haven't spoke about him yet. So this is coming out from Sky Sports this morning that there is a confidence now that an agreement will be reached between Fulham and Manchester United for the deal of Scott McTominay. That's good. I would sell Scott McTominay, definitely. And then it says that apparently Scott McTominay has agreed terms with Fulham. I just think that we need to get this one over the line, I understand the whole sell to buy thing. I understand financial fair play, profit and sustainability. Like, those are all real things. They're not made up, right? And we have an opportunity here to sell McTominay for 100% profit, a player who's come through the youth academy, we've never paid a transfer fee for, and by the sounds of it, we're going to get around 30 million, including add-ons. That will be one of our biggest transfers ever. And then people are like, what are you on about? 30 million, that's nothing. Like, oh, they bought Emile Smith-Rowe for this much. If you look at how much money Manchester United have made in transfers over the last decade, it's an absolute joke. It literally is a joke. Our biggest ever transfer was Ronaldo to Real Madrid, fine. But in recent history, our most expensive transfer was Daniel James to Leeds, and that was for 29 million euros. If we sell Scott McTominay for 30 million, he will go down as the 5th biggest transfer from Manchester United in our history. That's crazy, isn't it? And yeah, so I would definitely do that deal. Obviously, we know that they submitted a bid yesterday of, I think it was 23 million, including add-ons. Manchester United are apparently asking for 30, including add-ons. I've heard this morning that apparently Fulham's next bid will be £25 million plus add-ons. So, yeah, and apparently that will be enough to get the deal over the line. Obviously, then he'll go and do his medical and all the rest of it. So, yeah, this is coming out from Laurie Whitwell. He says Fulham are progressing well in talks with Manchester United as they believe that McTominay is open to joining them this summer. So it looks like he's already spoke to them, that he's happy to go and all the rest of it. And Laurie Whitwell says that Man United want a guarantee of £25 million plus some add-ons, which I think is probably fair. 1 year left of his contract. Like, that probably does make sense in the grand scheme of things. 25 million plus add-ons. I've got no issue with that. But yeah, obviously we'll wait and see what happens there. And see if that one, goes through. We've still got over 1,000 people in the room, but we've only got 500 likes. Everybody go and smash a like quickly if you haven't already, and make sure you subscribe to the show. We're 8 away from 34,600, so let's go and hit that next target really, really quickly. Okay, let's see what else I've got planned for today. There was a couple of other things I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember what they are, which is typical of me. Yeah, keep getting your comments in about McTominay. Let me know your thoughts. I just think we have to sell him. We do. Like, that 30 million could go a very, very long way in this window, especially with how the profit and sustainability rules work. There's a story coming out from somebody saying that, this is on Manchester Evening News, saying that Manchester United has informed Mazraoui that the deal will be finalised in the next days. Mazraoui awaits the green light to leave Bayern Munich tour, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. The Mazraoui deal is going to happen, definitely. Wan-Bissaka's going to join West Ham and Mazraoui will join Manchester United. Like, that one will definitely happen. With that one, it's just a matter of when, not if. Somebody in the chat's asking about Garnacho. Yeah, you're asking about Garnacho going back to training, I assume, and about Erik ten Hag's press conference. So yeah, obviously Erik ten Hag spoke to the press in America last night ahead of the Liverpool game. I will go through some of the quotes with you. So yeah, I think what you're asking is whether they're going to be in the Liverpool match, and they're not, because what Erik ten Hag meant was that all of the players who were on holiday, so Luke Shaw, Martinez, Garnacho, Kobe Mainoo, they're going to all be back in training today, right? But they're not going to be in America. They've gone back to Carrington. So that's where the confusion is. Erik ten Hag doesn't mean that they'll be part of the squad for the game against Liverpool. All of the players have flown back to Carrington, who weren't on the tour, and will now do their own training together at Carrington. Remember, Steve McLaren is still at Carrington. He hasn't joined the Jamaican national team yet. He's at Carrington, leading the training sessions. And then when Manchester United return from the tour, they will then reunite with those players. I think on Monday, the first training game is. So yeah, there won't be any of those players involved in the game on Sunday. That's what's apparently been said, because they've been on holiday for 3 weeks, Obviously, they've been doing training and stuff on holiday, but then they're not going to be flying to America for a pre-season tour game against Liverpool. Like, that just won't happen. It's very unlikely. But yeah, let's go through some of the other quotes from Erik ten Hag. So he's asked about Marcus Rashford's injury, and he says, "We have to wait, of course. We don't want to risk it." He says it's the last game of the tour, going into the season next week. Into an already an important game against Man City. We are within 24 hours after a game to make the final assessment. So, I mean, is he effectively saying that Marcus Rashford could be injured as well? I know he went down in the game against Real Betis, but I know some people are like, I don't like Rashford and all the rest of it, but me personally, I don't hold vendettas against players. I don't. Like, all I want is for Marcus Rashford to have a good season next year. I want him to get 20 goals. I want him to help us achieve our targets. And I'm not going to be the type of person who wishes injury on players. I just think that's disgusting, to be honest. Even if you don't like somebody, like, wishing harm on them is just like, what kind of a person does that make you if, you wish that some certain player gets injured? So I hope Marcus Rashford comes back as soon as possible. Yeah, I do. I hope he does. I really, really do. Obviously, we've got, what's he called? Garnacho, who can play on the left wing. And then we've got Ahmad, who can play on the right. So we'll be fine for the Community Shield game. Somebody's saying that Wan-Bissaka has been announced as a here we go. Let's have a look if that's true. Because if it is, I'll do a separate video on that. No, someone's trolling me. I don't know why people. It's just. I guess it's when they think it's funny. I guess. But yeah. So Wan-Bissaka to West Ham, isn't it? Here we go. But yeah, let's read through a couple more of his quotes before I end the video. Okay, so he then is asked about Scott McTominay, about whether he's going to leave the club this summer. And he says, I'm so pleased with the performances of McTominay and so pleased to have him in my squad. He has a huge impact on my team, performances and spirit. In that advanced position, he is so important. I'm so pleased to have him in my squad. I mean, obviously he's going to say that, but being completely honest, I actually think that he means that, because what he said there, right? I actually agree with all of that. And people are going to be like, what are you talking about? You want McTominay sold? Which I do. But McTominay in an advanced position is a very, very good player. He is. He got 10 goals last year in the Premier League. Like, he is clinical in and around the box. My problem with McTominay is him playing as a CDM, because he just can't do that role. And having him further up the pitch, he's not going to play unless you're bringing him on as an impact sub with 5 minutes left of the game. Because you've got Mount, you've got Bruno, you've got Xerxes, you've got Højlund, you've got Ahmad, Pellistri, Sancho. Like, do you know what I mean? We've got so many players in those attacking positions that we can't, we can't genuinely be thinking that McTominay is going to be our striker going forward. And him playing as a CDM, I'm sorry, it just isn't effective. So, yeah, I actually agree with everything he says there. I think McTominay has the right spirit. I think he has a big impact on, the team and all the rest of it, and the morale and all that stuff, because he seems like a nice guy. He does. And he works hard. He never lets his head drop. He seems to always be happy and all the rest of it. And I'm sure he is a lovely person to have around. But the factor of the matter is, can Scott McTominay be effective in the position that Erik ten Hag needs him to play, which is as a CDM? No, he can't. Is he effective as a central midfielder? No, I don't think so. And we have better players in those positions. So for that reason alone, if we're literally going to only keep him because he can be effective in and around the box in the final minutes of a game, then that doesn't make any sense, to be honest. Not for somebody who we can get 30 million for with 1 year left of his contract. He's then asked about Joshua Xerxes and Sancho. He says they are in two very different situations. Jadon is in pre-season. He is on tour. Joshua had played in the Euros, then had his break. Now started training this week. We have to assess and we'll pick a team capable to win the game against Man City. So he's asked if Sancho will start. I mean, realistically, that game against Man City, it should be mainly people from the pre-season tour, because they're all ready to go, Like, that should be the team that he picks. But we'll wait and see who he goes with. So, yeah, all of the people who aren't in the tour at the moment won't be there now. So, yeah, we'll have to wait until like next week to see them. I reckon there'll probably be a game next week between now and the Community Shield, like behind closed doors game, I reckon. Again, this is just a guess, but we did do that last year. I think we played Wrexham, didn't we? And we played someone else. Was it Burnley? We played in a behind closed doors game. I'd be very, very surprised if they don't have a game like next week sometime. It won't be on TV, so we won't be able to watch it. But yeah, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. It's been an amazing show this morning. Thank you so much to everyone who has spent the last 45 minutes with me. I really, really appreciate it. If you have enjoyed today's video, please make sure to smash a like before you leave. It's your way of showing that you enjoyed the show. It will really help to bring more people into the channel as well. And also make sure you subscribe on the way out. Have a great day, everybody. I'll be back at 1:30 for your lunchtime roundup. And I will also be back at 6 o'clock for the evening show. Thank you very much, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll speak to you all later. Bye-bye.